The Afghanistan war was not about oil. Please stop saying that to me while you're calling me an imperialist. I think the thing that makes me the most mad is every time you attack me for that war, you just show off how insanely ignorant you are to just like the basic goings-ons. Not like the politics. It's not like, oh, well, we disagree. You don't even seem to understand like why we went or even the reasoning given. So I'm going to tell everybody. I'm going to give you an Angry Medics crash course on why we invaded Afghanistan. Here we go. So much of this is going to be like inadvertently wrong because I'm paraphrasing. Oh, the comments should be fun. All right. So back in like the 70s, we were trying to stop the Soviet Union from doing stuff, and they were invading Afghanistan. So we gave some weapons to the Mujahideen, which were freedom fighters in Afghanistan at the time. And then later, some of the people in the Mujahideen had the weapons and the training that we gave them morphed into the Taliban. All right, put that in your head for later. There's a different group called Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is a terrorist cell that has been operating around the globe since the 1980s. They were not directly the ones that bombed the World Trade Centers the first time, but somebody that was trained in their camps did do it. They executed so many attacks, I do not have time to explain them all to you. Go look them up. There's a list on Wikipedia. All of these attacks culminated on September 11th, 2001, here in America, where they hijacked 4 different planes, flew 2 of them into the World Trade Center towers, one after another. Another one landed in the Pentagon, and a 4th, which was aimed for the White House, crashed in a field in Pennsylvania because a bunch of brave passengers took the plane down. There were more terrorist attacks after that in other locations around the world, but America decided to invade Afghanistan because the Taliban, who had taken over, remember the Taliban from earlier in the story? They took over Afghanistan in 1996, and then they allowed Al-Qaeda to have training camps there. The thing people don't understand is that terrorists are not just like hanging out somewhere and then they decide to do a terrorism. It requires so much logistics. They have to have bomb makers and truck drivers and people to train pilots and people to recruit. It's like a whole army, like a little hidden secret army, and they have to have training camps. And so there have to be places that allow those training camps to function. And the Taliban was allowing that with Al-Qaeda. So we, along with 40 other countries, invaded Afghanistan in 2001. We dismantled the Taliban regime, and we helped install a democratically elected government, and then tried to keep it operational for the next 20 years. Now that's an entire other different segment of history, which is much more complicated, and even I don't really fully grasp, even though I was there right in the middle in 2010. But the point is, we didn't go there for oil. We went there to destabilize the terrorist cell that was causing successful terrorist attacks all around the world and had just caused the largest destructive event in the history of the United States outside of active conflicts. And you can argue about that. You can be like, well, I disagree or whatever. But that's why we did those things. That's why we and 40 other countries, it wasn't just America. If you're going to get mad about imperialism, I want to hear you start yelling at these other countries too. By the way, by the end, there were 52 of them. That's what ISAF is, the International Security Armed Forces. Was it 56? It was actually 42. It only ever got up to 42. But that's what you get when you have brain damage from a war. Some women, by the way, were elected into their Senate, Parliament. I'm not really sure what they ended up calling it. They had a lot of really progressive ideas, too. And little girls started to go to school. There was a lot of good things that happened in that 20 years of war. And they wanted us to stay, by the way. They wanted us to stay. The government did. The government that got taken over and destroyed by the Taliban, who took back over. By the way, weren't always there. I feel like people always, well, Taliban did this and that. Yeah, before 1996, Afghanistan, pretty nice place. Go look at pictures. The funniest thing that ever happened to me is I was sitting in a history class, and this teacher was like, oh, when I was in Afghanistan, and I was like, you went to Afghanistan? And she was like, I went in the 90s. So it was very different then. Because it was nice. Or rather, not infected with the Taliban, which aren't great. They're not great people. I don't like them. Although I do really think it's amazingly funny and weirdly cathartic whenever those Taliban office workers who used to be freedom fighters get on their version of the internet and are like, I miss when me and the boys were in the mountainside shooting at the Americans. And I'm like, we're just boys. We're just boys fighting men's wars. That's what we are. I mean, granted, he was fighting a holy war and was trying to destroy my soul. So I don't like that. I don't like that about them. Mostly I'm mad at the bomb makers, truly. I don't really feel that angry about the individual guys. The Taliban as a whole, though, awful institution. But why are people pretending that, like, America bad, so Taliban have to be the good guys? There could be two bad guys in a conflict. The good guys, Afghan National Army and the Afghan National Police. Oh, here's a fun question. If all cops are bastards, does that include the Afghan National Police while they desperately fight against the Taliban? I think those guys are heroes. I liked the guys that had slings full of RPGs. Those guys were wild. And then one guy that we were with, he shot his straight up in the air, and that fucked up him and his friends. Didn't die though. One of my medics was nearby. People don't like the American military, but we are known around the world for being very good at fighting, because America's a war tribe and we like doing it. Even the civilians like fighting with guns. So I'll tell you that, from the perspective of an American, the Afghan National Army and Afghan National Police, I've never seen anybody fight with the vigor that they fought for, except maybe the Ukrainians, now that we're seeing footage from like the front lines of that war. People who are fighting for their own country fight real hard, and they fought beside us. So, I don't know. Why does no one consider that? Why does no one bring those guys up when they're talking about that war? It's just bad. Everything bad. Everything, America bad, war bad, invasion bad. We ignore all the terrorism, and we ignore all the people in the country that had a positive effect from us being there, because a lot of it was negative. I'm not going to deny that. I blame it on Iraq. America does not have the nuance to hold two different wars in their minds simultaneously. Iraq was based on a bunch of lies, and people got so angry about that, and also, the drone program really took off there, that they decided both wars were the same war, and then they just were like, we're mad about that. Both wars are bad, but one of them was complicated in the way that all wars are bad. And I'm not going to talk about Iraq. It's a whole other video. But that's why everybody's like, we went to Afghanistan, you're an imperialist looking for oil. No. You think that because of Iraq. Because Americans can't hold two wars. We've always done one at a time. And then everybody was like, this is how we feel about this one. And we couldn't do two. Even after it ended. Even after Iraq ended. And Afghanistan continued for another decade. People still would kind of be like, oh yeah, I deployed. They'd be like, oh, to Iraq? To Iraq? No, to the war that started much earlier and still hasn't ended. I would tell them. It's over now, obviously. I know people are going to take the entirely wrong message from this, because they always do. That's the internet, baby. I just want you to use some nuance when you discuss this war. When you're going to come in here and tell me, a medic who never fired a shot, about all the war crimes I committed, have a basic understanding of the arena in which you think those crimes took place. If you're going to invoke all the death and violence of that place that I saw personally and attempted to alleviate some of, again, non-combatant, medic, so it's just wild that you guys keep coming for me. I think people think that me constantly being like, I'm a medic, I didn't do anything wrong. That's just to point out how absurd a lot of these people are. I don't think joining the military makes you a bad person. I don't think the infantry are bad people. I think that a lot of this stuff is a necessary evil, because I have, those angry neoliberal ideas about the world. So, be mad at me for that. But don't put words in my mouth and tell me that I'm absolving myself by being a medic. I think I have double absolvement, because I don't think there's anything wrong with teenagers being coerced into the military. I don't think they're wrong. I think that in itself is wrong. But I don't think, double not wrong. The center of this Tootsie Pop is just me giving you the middle finger. This has been War Chats with Doc. Change your socks, drink water.